Welcome back, and in this tutorial we are going to learn how to look up the past transaction history, if there are any, for each particular property that we give you to look up. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And here is the realtracs home screen, and we will send you an address or addresses, and then we will need you to go ahead and pull up the past history of it so that we can see what's, if the property has been on the market, and how long has it been on the market, when was it last on the market, and has it ever been available. And this also helps us to find out the information on the property. If we go to a past listing, we can easily see information pretty much for the entire property, from acreage all the way to driveway type, bedrooms, baths, square footage. So these are very important sheets that we need before every presentation that we go on, so that we're well informed and that we can inform our sellers on how to properly market and sell their properties. So let's just say that we sent you 112 Water's Edge. And here, let's go ahead and clear this so that I can make this example an easy example to double check. If you're not getting results, sometimes you'll click search and maybe everything will come up with that. Yeah, too many search results. What I had selected was every active property that was all counties, and it found 16,090 matches. It only allows 250 searches. So if you ever have this box come up, it's because you need to refine your search, which means narrow the criteria down so that you can get 250 or less. So we'll click OK to that. And so if you go to the street number and then enter the street number that you're wanting to do, see, you could click into the street field and that would put the number in there, which is good. It didn't used to do that actually. Or you can go street number, then tab over, and it would enter in there. That was covered on a previous tutorial, but just a helpful tip. And so let's go ahead and enter this street number. And the property, if we keep all selected and we have the street number and name and we see status is active, we click search and there's not going to be any. Shouldn't be anyways. Yeah, the request did not have any results. And so active would be if that property was listed with an agent, or if we have it listed available for someone to purchase, then it's going to be considered active. That's what the active status means. And so this one doesn't have any active. So let's see if it has any pendings. And what I hit just then was control. Before I clicked on that, you can see that you can go through one at a time. You can hold control down and click, and you can select different ones. You can deselect them. And then if you take your finger off of control, it'll go back to one. So pretty standard stuff here. But so let's say active, pending, and closed. Well, let's just say all of them. Active, pending, closed, expired, and withdrawn. Pending means that they are under contract. So we'll look at what pending means. Sometimes there are homes that are pending, meaning they are under contract between a buyer and the seller, but it won't be reflected on this tab. It'll be reflected here, just a different way. We'll cover that at a later topic. And so let's go ahead and select all of these closed. If it was sold already, it would be right there. If it had ever sold. Expired, if it has ever expired with the agreement, they didn't sell it, or if it was just taken off the market. So let's go ahead and click this. Click search. And you can see here that we have all of these for Water's Edge. Here's what happens if you click the address, just so you know this. A map comes up. If you click on the address, just remember the map will come up. If we ever need you to print off a map of the location, here's how you can do that. You can see here that you can zoom out. A lot of times we like to see at least that view, and if we ever needed to see a map, it's good to see the aerial because I need to know if it's a busy road that the home is on. If it's not on a busy road, and look, it's close to the lake, this one is. So let's see where it is located exactly. And yeah, it looks like it's located right here. I'm thinking anyways, that's what the map looks like. So it looks like a nice property, and we'll go ahead and close out of that. So if we ever ask you to pull up the last sheet or that property information of it, this sheet would be it. If you printed this off, this could tell us at least that it was on the market at some point and what had happened with it. So if we ever ask you to pull up the past history on a property, that's what you would have done, and we'll cover that one more time, and then we'll go over how you would print that out. You would select all of these statuses, select all on the area, and enter the address. If you didn't have Water's Edge, or let's say you pulled Water's Edge and it wasn't returning any results, you could just go Waters, and then it would still pull up Water's Edge properties. And so we can do that now. See what happens. So you can see we still have Water's Edge. It still found them. So if we ever ask you for the last history sheet, report sheet, here's how you would find that. You would click on MLS number and find your largest number. That's the latest information on it. And you would click on the MLS number, and that will bring up this sheet. And from here you just simply go to print, and you would print that to a PDF file and save it in a folder for us correctly. So with this, here's what I do. You can see I have Adobe PDF selected for my printer, and then I print it. And from there, we would just say, last history sheet or something, or previous listing. So then you would save it like that, save it in the correct, you can see here the correct folder. It's 112 Water's Edge. That's how we save each of our folders. The street number, name first, then the zip code of the city that it's in, and then the hyphen, the slash, and then Bob Regis, so then the actual seller of it, or the buyer, our client. And then from there, so then we would save that. We're going to cancel out because we're not going to save it, just an example here. So let's go back. If you hit to list, this will take you back. And so if you go to list, you can see here, if we ever ask you to print that whole report, go ahead and click select all, so that we have all of these selected. So you can deselect these as well. Let's say you want to narrow the search. Let's just try an example. You deselect those, leave the ones that you want to keep selected, and then you go to functions, and then you would go to narrow listings. And if we ever asked you to email, if you had the two that you have selected would email to us, you could set that up if we ever ask you to do that. Never used that button, and that never really used these. So I would say email and narrow, probably the only two functions you'll be using typically. So let's just narrow this list, and you can see we have two of these. So, and reports, sometimes we'll ask for a CMA report, and we'll go into that in a later tutorial. So you can see we narrowed the results there, and if we ever ask you to print us off, to email us, then you would just email after you had the selected ones, the ones that we need to be looking at. Then you could just add our email address in here. Go ahead and click manual add. And then you can send a carbon copy to me, although this is an example, I'm using that one. If it's someone else, then you would just carbon copy me, and you would hit previous listing information for 112 Water's Edge, Hendersonville. And what we did here was we entered the street number, name, and the city that it's in. And then from there, you wouldn't have to enter anything in the body. with this, you always want to make sure that the buyer full page is selected and buyer CMA. And it doesn't matter if the signature for me is on or off because that's me. So you can see here you can have that off either way. Either way is fine. And then you would click send. And so when I ask you to send me that, I'll show you what happens when you send it to me. Then so then you can see the email that you sent me. And if I click the buyer full report, if I want to see the previous listings, look at this. I can see it. There are a few things I can't see on these, which is why most of the time I will ask you to print the sheets off to an Adobe PDF file for me. Because see, here's the things that's missing that's important to me. So generally you won't be doing it this way, but this is just one way if you wanted to email it. Typically it'll have the days on market, which you can see, let's just say for an example here. You can see on this one at the bottom, 122 days on the market. I can see what it was listed at, and if it's sold, I can see how much, typically. But with this example, with what had come to me, you can see that there's the sheet. If we scroll down here, well, let's see. So you can see on this one that when we scroll down, there are no days on market. So at the very bottom, there would typically be the days on market. And as you can see here, I don't have that information. That's why we typically wouldn't be emailing me this information. I'm going to have you print each one out. So typically what you would do to print off a previous for me, you would go to tax ID history on the listing, and I could see that, and then you would just print that sheet off. So because that lets me know everything that I need to know about it for a past listing anyways. And if I need more information, we can do that. But you see how easy that was? We just went to tax ID history and print. So then you would print that to a PDF file for me in the Dropbox folder that we have selected for you. And we will close out of that. But you see, I can see how many days on market the property was last. It was listed that date, so I know that it was on the market 122 days longer than that date. And I can see the list price that it was at, and I can see that it expired. It didn't sell, it didn't get withdrawn. It actually ran the full length of a listing agreement with the listing agent, and it didn't sell. So that can definitely be very helpful to know. Now I'm going to go to a new tutorial and do a few more examples of things that you can run into while performing this task. And I hope that that helped you. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. That can also be helpful for me to create future tutorials and make things to help as much as I can. So feel free to just ask. But other than that, I'm going to go to the next tutorial, cover another couple examples.